Hey everyone, welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. In today's episode, we're going to be studying a piece by the career multimedia artist on surea.i labs, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at the format of the portrait. We're also going to explore the preservation of our natural realm, so let's jump right into it. So at first sight, we're met with a single Gora warrior here set in center. Our first impression is one of both awe, but also shock due to the foreign figure before us here. And so one of the first things the impact of color within this composition. Of course, we have this bluish purple here in direct contrast to the orange. Blue and orange, of course, are going to be a complementary color scheme. They're going to contrast and fight for the viewer's attention here. It's also reminiscent of the clash of two elements, right? You have water and you have fire here. And so another thing I notice is the impact of texture within this work. We see this quite clearly. Everything from our subject's skull or mask, if you will, to our subject's shoulder, all of which immerse us so well within the work at hand. These are quite rough, but like I said, they do an amazing job of giving us a sense of realism, a stylistic realism, if you will. So you may notice how the format of this figure is in side profile. This is actually quite interesting. When I was talking to the original artist, they were essentially saying that the early AI art programs did a horrible job at rendering front-facing portraits. And so what we're left with, of course, is simplified, but I think it's very distinct and necessary to the work at hand here. Of course, it is simplified, but it also gives a very striking silhouette, if you will. And so I think that's incredibly relevant and very necessary and appropriate for the piece at hand here. The portrait, of course, places you in intimate proximity with the person it presents, and I think we certainly see that here. With this in mind, who or what do you think our subject is? Who is this, or what do you think we're witnessing? I think that's a really important question. And so the creature before us is most reminiscent of the nudibranch. This is a very underappreciated mollusk. When I was doing some studying for the work, I was having a blast looking at all these very beautiful and intricate mollusks here. So you can certainly see that, right? You have, say, the kind of spiking, incredible sense of texture. We certainly see that here. You have the spikes kind of emanating or ruminating out from the subject there. There also is an incredible sense of texture. We also see that on the mollusk there. So I want to briefly mention that, the artist is talking about how underappreciated this mollusk is, and I truly agree. Very colorful, very vibrant, and even alien, if you will, as well. I think that's pretty relevant to the work before us here. So our subject is wearing this armor of some kind or another, right? I referred to it as a skull, but it's most likely a helmet, right? You see multiple layers in the piece at hand, even kind of a jawline there. And there is no doubt the work before us is both mechanical, but also biological as well. And I think there's an incredible juxtaposition that's provided by that, right? We have the biomechanical, almost like the steampunk, but very deep underwater. I think there's no doubt about that. We see our subject as a warrior of some kind or another there. I actually have some of the original prompts. I'm going to bring that in real quick and see what we can learn about the piece before us here. Alright, so the original artist was so kind to provide me with some of the original prompts that were used to generate the piece before us here. I think this is incredibly interesting. Even if briefly scan over this, you can get a pretty good idea of the aesthetic that we're working with. Of course, some of the things I'll mention is a coral warrior, the side profile. You have cosmic horror. You have, of course, a warrior on fire, but this is a underwater warrior, a unique contrast and juxtaposition there. Biomechanical, chrome, centurion pose, the warrior, so many different things you could mention here, and we certainly see that in the composition before us. The original artist was also talking about some of the original artists that were mentioned here. I'm going to bring in an additional description, see what we can learn here. Alright, so I brought in that description to give us some more insights on the prompts that were used here. Of course, we see a lot of artists mentioned, from Mumford to Wieland to Heckel, so many different artists that are mentioned here, but the original artist elevates a few specifically here. So we have, quote, "The biomechanical influence is definitely evident." That's H.R. Geiger and Ernest Haeckel are no-brainers for introducing that style. I was also trying to bring some dark sci-fi into the fold and make the coral/ocean connection clear. I think we certainly see that here, right? You have, of course, like the artist said, you have the dark sci-fi within this, but you also have the biomechanical. This is, whenever I first saw this work, it just left me speechless, right? I didn't know what to think, but in looking at so many insights, it truly makes this clear here. This is a biomechanical warrior who may even come back to warn everyone on the fragility of our natural ecosystems, but we're going to get a bit deeper in that here in a second. I love those insights, and I'm just so glad I had some of the original prompts to reference for the piece before us here. All right, so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk on the visual energy in the work before us. Of course, we have that visual energy from texture, but we also have fire present within the work at hand as well. Of course, this is most reminiscent at the crest of our subject's helmet, as well as the end and a little bit under the neck as well, all of which give us an incredible sense of energy and even more texture to the scene at hand here. I actually have some more insights from the original artist. They provided me a lot of insights for this work. I'm going to bring it in real quick and see what we can learn. All right, so I brought in the original description, talking about this, fire, but also the effect of this aesthetic. We're going to read that real quick. So, the fire was an aesthetic choice to complement my signature use of chromatic aberration or anaglyph effect and to sort of distort the viewer's understanding of what they're looking at. I wanted to make something that looks wet or looks like the character belongs underwater and yet was also clearly ablaze. I think AI is a great tool to interpret contradictions like these. I certainly agree with that. There's so many AI works that show a contrast or a juxtaposition. Even thinking about Stephen Young's pieces, an amazing example of that here. And so, yeah, that's really cool. And the original artist, has this effect, which is quite definitive to their style. I actually have some additional works from the artist, such as Airship and Citrine. I'll bring those in real quick and see what we can learn. All right, so we're about into additional works, both from the original artist surea.i Labs. We have Citrine and we have Airship there. What you'll notice is all three instances have this similar stylistic effect as an anaglyph or a glitch here. We see this, of course, in the backing there. We see this around the silhouette of our subject's form, and then we see this most evidently in the clouds of the airship work on the left here. All of which, of course, give this very stylistic visual energy and really remind of surea.i Labs. When I see this effect, I instantly know whose work I'm looking at. So I just want to bring those in real quick and kind of give some reference to the unique stylistic effect that's always provided by surea.i Labs. And so after a short time at this work, you may notice these coral polyps kind of in the background, and they seem, almost as an afterthought, but that couldn't be further from the truth here. Although they are kind of, in the corner, they're a little hazy, if you will, they give us some incredible insights to the piece before us. So at their most basic, coral polyps are colonial animals, right? They all work together to create something that's greater than the sum of the parts. And I think that's an amazing metaphor to AI art in general, right? The original artist actually talks a bit about that. I have a rather long description. We're going to briefly skim through that real quick and see what we can learn here. All right, so like I said, the artist gave me a ton of insights for the piece before us, and I really wanted to get to this. I think this is just an amazing metaphor that I really enjoyed, and I've learned a lot from this here. So I'm going to briefly skim through it. The artist is talking about corals being a mainstay of AI art because they're colonial animals who cooperate to function as a whole to create beautiful structures. And this, sense of collaboration and interconnectedness can also serve as a metaphor for the potential of AI systems to work together in harmony to create something greater than the sum of their parts. That's what I briefly mentioned just 1 second ago. But furthermore, the unique and varied shapes and colors of coral formations provide endless inspiration for artists working with AI to create visually stunning pieces that push the boundaries of traditional art forms. I think that is just so profound here. You have, of course, that metaphor quite clearly, but you have a clear source of inspiration, especially from the natural world. I think a lot of artists are kind of sleeping on that, if you will. Finally, the artist says, incorporating corals into AI art not only celebrates the beauty and complexity of the natural world, but also highlights the potential for technology and nature to coexist in a mutually beneficial way. I think that is just so profound here. Like I said, you have the coral in the background. They don't seem like a definitive element of this display, but all in all, this is one of the most profound things I've ever heard of in a piece of art, and I absolutely love that there. So I wanted to share that idea and elevate that to give that some more eyes and ears there. So yeah, that is incredibly profound. I think there's no doubt about that. But going back to the main theme of the work at hand here is going to be the nudibranch, right? We have the mollusk here and kind of an agent of the natural world, if you will. It's almost as if they're visiting us to kind of warn on the fragility of the natural ecosystems, kind of like they've surfaced to get revenge on those who are destroying the natural ecosystems. But this is a profound piece. I think there's no doubt about that. I actually have the original, at least one of the composites that was used here. So the original piece was created in both Disco Diffusion and Midjourney. So this is a multimedia AI generative artwork. So we have that original generation, but even furthermore, the artist then takes it into Procreate, does some digital illustration and some digital edits. So a very complex piece. And of course, you can see the original kind of prompter in it there. So we see this, right? You have the subject silhouette, you have that incredible sense of texture, and a majority of the composition is already laid out there. But the additional elements such as the coral, such as the artist's famous effect that we saw in those additional works, all the way to the presence of this fire. They're so stunning, and I absolutely love to look at this work here. So, yeah, I really hope y'all enjoyed today. Like I said, it is a mixed media or multimedia AI generative artwork. So, Midjourney, Disco Diffusion, and then Procreate to put those composites together and give some additional illustrations. So, like I said, I really hope y'all enjoyed today. We talked about so many different things, from the ecosystem of our natural world, the metaphors of AI art, the energy and the composition, the sense of texture, the kind of foreign figure before us. So many different things we hit on today. I truly hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all enjoyed today's episode, make sure to check out the original artist surea.i Labs, doing some amazing stuff in the world of AI generative art, as well as illustration in those edits too. So I love those insights on the metaphor of AI art as a colony, just like coral polyps. So like I said, I really hope y'all enjoyed today. And if y'all did, go check out the original artist surea.i Labs. My name's Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.